Chapter 12. Harry. Mr. Clarence was trying to hit a man on the ground with one of his broom handles. Blood was dripping from the man's nose and his eyebrow was cut too. The police horse neighed and whinnied, and round Ida people were shouting and cursing, using words that she would never use. "Get out of the way, miss! We've got to get this scum off the streets!" He jabbed his broom handle at the fallen man, whose blue coat had flapped open to show off his black shirt. "Please don't, Mr. Clarence." Ida stood between the shopkeeper and the man, maybe only a bit younger than her dad would have been. "You don't understand, young lady, and you shouldn't be out on the streets on a day like today." He raised the broom handle higher, took hold of Ida's arm, and tried to move her out of the way. Though Mr. Clarence had a tight grip, Ida resisted. "No, Mr. Clarence, I can't let you do that. He's hurt already." But Mr. Clarence raised his broom handle even higher. The man's flop of black hair, long at the front and bristly like a soldier's at the back, stuck to his face where it was bloody. He squinted up at Ida. "Thank you, miss. That's good of you. I'm sorry you're caught up in this." "You see, he knows he's in the wrong." Mr. Clarence brought the handle down. "No!" Ida snatched it away. "I'm sorry, Mr. Clarence. You can't do that. Whatever he's done, look, he's sorry." Mr. Clarence harumphed. He was taken aback, but he gave in. Ida supposed he'd just got carried away. As she held out her hand to the man on the ground, the policeman had finally got his horse under control. It whinnied and tossed its mane, and Ida felt its breath warm on her neck. The policeman looked down. "Why aren't you in school, young lady?" "I'm 14, Ida told him, which was almost true. Ida couldn't believe how that lie slipped out so easily. "Well, you should be at home helping your mother in that case." "She's helping me, officer." The man pulled the flap of his blue coat across his chest to hide the black shirt. "Fair enough. Well, get her out of this mess." The policeman pulled on the reins and the horse trotted into the thickest part of the crowd. "You're a kind girl. We're in the way here. Come on." The man took Ida's hand and led her out of the scrum. "I need to go in there." Ida pointed at the town hall, where above the angry hordes in the street, two ladies flicked their cigarettes elegantly on the top step. Sergeant Jackson was pacing backwards and forwards halfway down. All the black reminded Ida of something. It troubled her for a while, but then she realised, of course, Uncle Arthur, he was always in black for his work. As soon as they found a space, the man, the black-shirt man, took Ida's hand and shook it warmly. "Thank you. My name's Miller, Harry Miller. I'm sorry you got caught in that." "I couldn't watch Mr. Clarence hurt you or anyone, and it wasn't all your fault, was it?" She smiled at him. She liked him for feeling responsible. "It was meant to be peaceful. Everything about this whole thing's meant to be peaceful, for peace. It's why I joined the Blackshirts." He shook his head sadly. "I think I'm on the wrong side." He reached into his pocket for a little brown bottle of pills. He shook one into his hand and swallowed it back. "Are there sides?" Ida noticed that the crowd was thinning out. "Well, there will be if there's a war, which is what Mosley says he's trying to prevent. Anyone who fought in the last one wouldn't want another one, but I'm beginning to see that what he's supporting is making something much worse." The name Mosley sounded familiar to Ida. Yes, Mr. Rogers had talked about him and his black shirts a few times. Mr. Rogers didn't like him. What could be worse than a war? She was born 4 years after it ended, but she'd seen what it had done to her dad. "Were you in the war, Mr. Miller?" "It's Harry, and yes, I was. I wasn't on the ground with the poor beggars in the trenches. I was in the air, for the last year anyway. Some would say I'm a very lucky fellow." "You flew?" Ida had a dream of being an aircraft mechanic as well as a car mechanic. "I did." For a moment the colour drained from his face. "I still can't believe I survived." He sighed and shook his head. Was he trying to shake the memory away? "Look, here we are." The steps were clear of Blackshirts, even clear of Sergeant Jackson. Ida only had to walk up them. But now she was here, she was having second thoughts. Ida had never been anywhere as grand as the town hall before. It made her shiver with nerves. So instead she asked Harry, Do you still fly? Just about. Got an Avro. I do trips for rich people with money to burn. They're always surprised that where they land is where they took off. They just can't tell where they're going. Flying disorientates them. We don't have inbuilt compasses like the birds, you see. Disorientates? Asked Ida. Is that like getting dizzy? Not exactly. If you're above the clouds, you don't see the countryside whizzing past like you do on a train, and up there I could tell you we were going north when actually we'd be going south. Unless you knew the landmarks to look out for, you wouldn't be able to tell. I'd love to see inside an aeroplane. Ida went all goosepimply with the thrill of it. You can have a ride in mine. It's a fair exchange for rescuing me from an angry shopkeeper. I'd very much like a ride, but what I'd really like is a look at the engine. I'm learning to be a mechanic, you see. Well, that's even easier to arrange. A cold breeze blew across the town hall steps. Ida shivered and rubbed her arms as much from the thought of entering the town hall as the breeze. Hey, look, you're getting cold. We should get you inside. He motioned Ida up the steps. Ida felt her heart beating faster than normal. Are you sure this is where you want to be? Asked Harry. Ida took a deep breath. Yes, I need to get my sister. Our mum died and my sister's been taken to the orphanage, but our mum wanted us to stay together. Oh, I'm sorry about your mum, and I don't blame you for wanting to get your sister back. I'll wait for you here just in case. Harry had such a nice open face. It was like he'd parcelled up all his thoughts about the war, locked them in a box, and buried them deep underground so they didn't bother him like Dad's had. If you change your mind about all this, Ida indicated the remnants of the march and the fight, you might want to get rid of your black shirt. Harry nodded and smiled. I should. Go on, see what you can do. Ida stepped inside the Netterfield town hall, and as she did, a light switched on in her brain about the troubling black. It wasn't Uncle Arthur's work uniform that bothered her. It was the new black silk blouse she remembered seeing on the back seat of an Austin Ruby.